الحمد لله يضعف ما حمده جميع خلقه كما يحبه ويرضى. اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم اجعلنا دعاة إليك وإلى رسولك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك لك، وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وعظيمنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله، أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: ولا تصعر خدك للناس ولا تمشي في الأرض مرحا إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخور. Hazrin Ikram, Honorable Assembly, first of all we give all praise and all thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the favors and bounties Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on us. And we send salat and salam on his last and final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted honor, izzah and respect to Luqman alayhi salam. Luqman alayhi salam, he was not a prophet, he was a wise man, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted him hikmah. And people from wide and far would come to Luqman alayhi salam in order for him to advise them. And these advice that Luqman alayhi salam would give to the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved those advice. So much so that in the last and final revelation, which is the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose some advices that were given during the time of Dawood alayhi salam. Because Luqman alayhi salam, he was in the time of Dawood alayhi salam. And that was before Jesus alayhi salam, that was before Musa alayhi salam, and many prophets. But those advice that were given in those days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one as a means of honor and as a means of respect for Luqman alayhi salam, as well as the content of the advice given by Luqman alayhi salam, he had chose to reveal it to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and reveal the exact conversation, the exact advice that Luqman alayhi salam would give. So we look in the Quran and we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِإِبْنَهِ وَهُوَ يَعِذُهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and when Luqman alayhi salam said to his ibn, said to his son, Luqman alayhi salam, he is talking to his son. But Allah tells you the type of conversation he is having with his son. He says, وَهُوَ يَعِذُهُ, whilst he was advising him. He was advising him. Luqman alayhi salam was a very busy man. He was an individual that people would come from far and wide to ask him for advice. And they will even come with their problems. But yet he put aside some time to advise his child, to advise his son. Many a times we have our children as well, and we are so busy and we are so caught up with our jobs that we hardly have time to sit with our children and our grandchildren and talk to them and advise them. We are seeing here that Luqman alayhi salam, even though he have all these big appointments, as you could say, he still putting aside some time in order to speak with his son, in order to guide his son, in order to shape his son. So وَهُوَ يَعِذُهُ, whilst he was advising his son, he said to his son, Ya bunayya, O my child, O my son, La tushrik billah, inna shirka la dhulmun azim. The first advice given to his son. First advice is going to advise his son, which is the greatest lesson, which is the greatest lesson of our lives. If we understand this and if we practice this, we are successful. And if we do not practice this, and if we are not part of this, then we are not successful. So this definitely has to be the greatest advice that anyone could give. It says, Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. Certainly associating partners with Allah is a great injustice. So he is advising his son to be aware, take precaution against committing shirk. Because as we all know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allah la yaghfiru an yushraka bihi, wa yaghfiru ma duna dhalika liman yasha. Allah will never forgive shirk. Allah is saying. And this is a promise from Allah, and Allah doesn't break his promise. So be it how the individual might be good, be it however the individual might be charitable, might be generous, if they die committing shirk, if they die associating partners with Allah, Allah himself is saying that Allah will not forgive them. But Allah will forgive any other sin for whoever he wants. So stealing, robbing, backbiting, lying, all these are great sins. Consuming intoxicant, these are great sins. But there is still a possibility for you to be forgiven. And one day you will be forgiven, as long as you die without associating partners with Allah. But if you are to die associating partners with Allah, then there's no forgiveness. We have seen many a times in our communities that an individual, you will have his son or sometimes his daughter, and you will see him come into the mosque once a year, maybe on Eid alone, and he will bring his children up just like that. The only time they see the masjid is at the time of Eid. And when these individuals becomes adults and they are exposed to the outside world and they are exposed to the others, and these other people, they are influencing them, they are trying to sway them away from Islam and show them all the bad things of Islam. We have seen many leaving Islam at that point of time. But this was all because of the parents. The parent didn't instill it whilst the child was young. The parent didn't keep the child in the environment where he could understand what is Islam. All he knows that Islam is a custom. Because if you're only coming to the masjid for Eid, then that becomes a custom. I'm looking forward every year to come to the masjid on Eid day. And that is all he will know about is Islam. So when the individuals become adults and they become teenagers and they are striving and they are going onto another path, becoming a Christian, becoming a Hindu, turning to another religion, we have no one to blame except the parents. Because this is what Luqman alayhi salam is doing. Luqman alayhi salam, his son is small, but he's going to instill the basic into his son. What is the most important thing you need to know? And what is the most important thing you need to embed in your mind and you need to keep as your foundation is that never ever should you worship anyone besides Allah. That is the first and foremost. And then he says, Ya bunayya, this is, oh my son, إنها إن تك مثقال حبة من خردل فتكن في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأتي بها الله إن الله لطيف خبير. Says, oh my son, you should know well that whatever you do, be it as small as a mustard seed, be it whatever evil that you have committed, whatever sin that you have done, whatever wrong that you have committed, know very well that if that small sin, that small evil deed is as small as a mustard seed, and if that small sin which is like that of a mustard seed is in a rock, not under the rock that you'll move it and see it, but if that small sin which is like that of a mustard seed is in the rock, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will still bring it forward on Yawm al-Qiyamah. If that small sin is in the heavens somewhere hidden, know that Allah will still bring it forward. If that small sin is anywhere on the earth, know that Allah will still bring it forward on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So he's teaching his son that you should recognize and be conscious of Allah, that you cannot hide from Allah. You cannot hide from Allah. You can hide from man. You might be able to hide from your parents. You might be able to hide from your friends. You might be able to hide from the imam, but you cannot hide from Allah. At no point of time you could hide from Allah. And know that anything that you're going to do, Allah is seeing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always looking, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So here he's telling his child, no. Recognize that at no point of time you could get away with any sins. And especially in the time that we are living in, some of our youths feel as long as they hit the delete button, delete the entire history, nobody will know. No one will see what they were doing. No one will see what they were looking at. But know that before you even hit that delete on the history, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew all the history before. And that history is already recorded with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So be careful. Even if you're in your rooms by yourself, even if you're in your car alone and no one is around, know very well that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always sees. So first of all, he's telling his son, the first advice, do not associate partners with Allah. Let Allah be the only one that you worship. The second, acknowledge or recognize, be conscious that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always around and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always sees. And then the third advice, Ya bunayya aqim as-salah, Ya bunayya aqim as-salah wa'mur bil ma'ruf wanha 'anil munkar wasbir 'ala ma asabak inna dhalika min 'azmil umur. Says, O my child, O my son, establish salat. Second, the third advice, establish salat. Salat was given to all the prophets. Because just as how all the prophets, they came and they teach Tawheed and the oneness of Allah, they taught the people that you need to obey Allah. The method of obeying Allah is through ibadat and through salat. So he's saying to his son, establish salat. Be it if the salat might be different than what we are praying at present. But yet he's saying, establish salat. As long as you recognize that you only worship Allah, now it's time for you to pray to Allah. Establish your salat. And we know from Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he has also taught us that when we have children, when they reach the age of 7, should encourage them to pray. And when they reach the age of 10 and they are not praying their salah, then we need to be more strict. We need to ensure, we need to be a little harsh on them to ensure that they are praying their salah when they reach the age of 10. But the thing is, many of us, we cannot do that. Even though we know that I have to ensure my child pray at the age of 10, we cannot do that, many of us. And the reason we cannot do that is because we ourselves aren't doing that. We ourselves ain't praying the 5 daily salat. Many of us, we are sitting in front of the television whilst we are hearing the azan. The azan is being called, but we still want to sit and watch our television, forget about salat. How could we tell our son and our daughter, now it is the time to pray? Leave that off and go and pray. When you yourself don't have control over the remote. You yourself cannot control your fingers and say, you know what, this is time for me to move from this and it's time for me to pray my salat. No one of us want to do that. So when we cannot pray our 5 daily salah, how could we encourage our children to pray? And when we do, if you are to try to be like that and say, I'm still going to encourage my child to pray, then they will give you a back answer. They will tell you, why are you telling me to pray and you're not going to pray? And which one of us as parents want to hear that? So instead of hearing something like that from our children, and instead of changing our lives and pray, we keep our mouth closed. And we say, no, I'm not going to tell him anything. He turned a big man already. That is attitude. But we are not ready to change, but we want our children to be righteous. We need to make the first step. So he says, Aqim as-salat, establish salat, wa'mur bil-ma'ruf, encourage that which is right, wanha anil munkar, and forbid which is wrong. Wasbir ala ma asabak, and be patient of whatever afflicts you. So these are 4 things in the ayat. He tells his son, 1, establish the salat, enjoy what is right, forbid what is wrong, and the 4th thing, have patience. Now, without the patience, you cannot be successful with the first 3. If you have no patience, you cannot pray salat. You cannot be consistent with your salat, because today you might pray your salat, but if you do not have sabr, you do not have patience, something will come up tomorrow and you'll prefer that over your salat. It is only when you have sabr and you have patience, you'll be able to be consistent with your salat. If you do not have sabr, then you cannot encourage anyone to do good and you cannot stop someone from doing evil, because nobody likes to be corrected. A husband, he doesn't like when his wife corrects him. A wife, she doesn't like when her husband corrects her. Children do not like when their parents correct them. Friends do not like when they are being corrected by another. Nobody likes to be corrected. And when you try to correct someone, the first thing that they will jump on, they will try to defend themselves by looking at some of your faults. And they will bring up your past. And they will talk bad things about you just because you try to correct them. But that is part of giving dawah. All that will come when you try to encourage which is right. So at that time, instead of shutting them out because the way of how they replied to your dawah, or the way they responded to your dawah, that is the time you need to have sabr, you need to have patience. So Luqman alayhi salam is saying to his son, do these things. Establish the salat, encourage that which is right, forbid which is wrong, as well as have patience, because there will be a lot of things coming your way. As long as you try to do that. As long as you try to pray and you try to be God conscious, there will be a lot of calamities, there will be a lot of fitnas and a lot of trials that will come your way. But that is the time for you to have sabr and patience. And then he says, Inna dhalika min azmil umur. Says the only time or the only way you could fulfill these 4 things is if you have determination. The only time you're able to pray all those salat and encourage which is right and forbid which is wrong and have sabr is only when you have a strong determination, when you're determined to do it. If you do not have a strong determination, you can never achieve it. And then he says, وَلَا تُصَئِرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. He says, do not turn your cheeks away from the people, or do not puff up your cheeks at the people. وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. Neither should you walk on the earth boastfully or proud. Now he's talking to his son. There's no ayat before that speaks anything about wealth or about position. He's not telling his son when you become wealthy that you should be humble. He's not telling his son that when you have a big position, then you should be humble and you should not be proud. He's telling his son when you start to be obedient to Allah, when you start to do those 4 things above, when you start to pray your salat and you start to encourage which is right, forbid what is wrong, and you start to have patience, that is the time that you should not turn your cheeks away from the people. Many a times, when we hear about pride and we hear about arrogance, we think about those who are wealthy, those in high position, that they treat those who are in the lower class as nothing. But here we are saying, Luqman alayhi salam is saying, even those who are obedient will do it as well. Those who are obedient, those who are praying 5 daily salat, sometimes they look down at those who are not praying salat. Those who have a beard, sometimes we look down at those who are shaving their beards. Those who are wearing the hijab, sometimes we look down at those who are not wearing the hijab, and sometimes we think that we are better than them. Sometimes we might think that because I'm praying my salat, I'm better than these people. Look, they do not have time with their salat. He's saying to his son, never allow your obedience to have pride built up inside of you. Never allow how close you have become to Allah for that pride to enter into your hearts. Because shaitan will come, and shaitan will inspire, and shaitan will whisper, and shaitan will tempt you to say, you know what, look at the amount of good deeds you're doing. These people are nothing. And sometimes we behave like that because when someone outside there who's not dressed as us, sometimes they give us salam because we know we are accustomed coming to the masjid and they are not accustomed coming to the masjid. Sometimes we treat them as nothing. Sometimes we walk past them even though they give us salam, we do as if we didn't hear their salam. Because we feel to ourselves, we are better. I am praying salat. I am obedient to Allah. I do not have time with these people. They are unimportant. He says, وَلَا تُصَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ. Also, it could also mean that whenever you're speaking to people, you should face them. You should give them your full attention. Know when someone important in front of you, you'll ensure if they're speaking to you, you will not look around, watch all the sides. You'll try to focus on what they are saying. When there's someone who is unimportant speaking to you, sometimes we have a habit that we're watching here, there, and everywhere, and we're not taking them on because we feel, you know what, these are not important. He's saying to his son that whenever anyone speaks to you, whenever you are advising anyone, whenever anyone comes to ask you a question, never consider anyone to be insignificant. Never consider anyone to be lower than yourself. Always consider yourself to be lower than everyone. Always feel humble. Always implement humbleness in your life. وَلَا تُصَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. Then he says, and do not walk on the earth boastfully. Do not walk on the earth boastfully. Verily Allah do not like those who are boastful. وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشْيِكَ وَقْدُدْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ. Then he says you should be moderate in your walking. So he teaches him how you should behave with the people. Now he's teaching him of his personal attributes. So when you're walking as well, do not walk too slow. Sometimes we feel that we have become so righteous that we have to take small steps while we are walking. We want to show everyone that, hey, I've become righteous. And sometimes we pull a tasbih bead and we are going slow down the road just to show everyone, I have become righteous. He says you don't have to put on a show. Be moderate in your walking. Walk normal. Do not walk too speed. Do not walk too slow, but be moderate in your walking. Waqdud min sautik. And also lower your voice. Do not shout. Do not raise your voice when you're speaking. Try to always control your tone, the tone of your voice. Do not be too loud. So these are different advices that Luqman alayhi salam has given to his child. Many of us, we have children. Many of us, we have grandchildren. These are advice that we should also implement. Mostly, first of all, in our lives, as well as get our children. Let us sit down. Sit down with your children. Sit down with your sons. Sit down with your daughters. Take a 5 minutes or 10 minutes every day. Sit down with them. Find out how they are going. Advise them. Show them the way. Do not run only after the dunya and forget your children. Because when the time reaches, you turn old and you're saying it is time for me to turn back to Allah, your children has gone astray. Whilst even if you're busy, put aside some time to spend with your children and advise them. And the best advice we could give to them is what Allah has revealed to us. The advice that Luqman alayhi salam had given to his children. And if we were to advise them with that advice, then inshallah they will become righteous. Inshallah they will become the coolness of our eyes. Inshallah they will become an example for the community. But we have to do our part. We have to sit with them. We have to advise them. Nice as a father, as a grandfather, sit and let them understand. Let they be comfortable to talk. Be comfortable that they could talk to you and you could talk to them. And then whenever troubles come up, then they will come to you and they will talk to you. But if you're never around to talk to them, when troubles come up, they will not come and talk to you. So this is something that we need to implement in order to keep that connection between our children and our grandchildren so that they could be on the straight path. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them, and may Allah guide us all and keep us on the straight path. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.